Good evening to you all, and welcome to the Council's February 16, 2021 regular meeting. It's good to see you all this evening, and those of you who are joining us online or by our Facebook or other methods, we welcome all of you. As you can tell, we are meeting virtually this evening, and in just a few moments I'll explain some of the rules we'll be using for our virtual meeting this evening. To begin with, though, I'd like to recognize our town clerk, Miss Stella Gibson, who will call the roll for our meeting.
Mayor Marshburn.
I am present.
Councilmember Dellinger.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews. Councilmember Singleton. And Councilmember Vance.
Here. Okay, thank you. As is noted, Mr. Matthews hopefully will join us just briefly. He is having a little technical difficulty, and so he was scheduled to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance this evening, but I will ask you, if you will, at this time to join me, and perhaps we could try to say it in unison, or if not, I'll be happy to lead us. Okay? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, you may be seated. If you will join me briefly, I'm going to ask that we all join in a time of a moment of silence, remembering all those frontline workers who are out there, and particularly those who are still working with COVID and COVID vaccine and are doing their best to offer up the vaccine for people who are eligible to receive that. So if you will join me this time, and then I will lead us in our brief invocation. We are thankful, oh God, for this great country that we are privileged to be a part of, and for the freedoms that we enjoy. Help us to every day consider our role and responsibility in ensuring that the freedoms that we experience are long-lasting and are preserved even to future generations. Thank you for those who are present this evening and are engaged in local government. Would you give wisdom to all of us as we deliberate and as we consider issues that are coming before our town? May we be guided by wisdom from above, and may we follow those common sense directions that we know are right and true. And may we all be blessed by your mercy and your grace, and may the good people of this town see a meeting of this type as those kinds of things that are responsible to keep our town moving forward and to make this a place that we can all be proud of and enjoy living in. Thank you for the time we'll spend together. Amen. Okay, just to remind both the council and others, this meeting is being conducted as a remote meeting pursuant to North Carolina Sessions Law 2020-3. Council members, be reminded that whenever a council member cannot be seen on the screen, that member will identify him or herself by name prior to asking questions, participating in deliberations, making motions, proposing amendments, and voting. So remember that, if you will. And our voting tonight will be by roll call. So our town clerk will lead us in that process. The next item is petitions and comments, and there is an online form that's available for persons to participate in the meeting or to submit written comments on items not included on the agenda. There was a way for persons to call in. For those who expect to participate in specific items, I will read further instructions as we get to the section under public hearings. Ms. Gibson, were there any persons who indicated interest in making any comments under petitions and comments?
No, sir, we had no one ask for that.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. The next item, council, is the adoption of the agenda. I'm sure you've had a chance to look at it and review it, so at this time I will entertain a motion for adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Motion made. Is there a second? Okay, seconded. Okay, thank you. Motion made and properly seconded. We'll ask our town clerk to call the roll if you agree to adoption of the agenda.
Mayor Pro Tem Behringer,
Yeah, aye.
Councilmember Dellinger,
Aye.
Councilmember Matthews,
Aye.
Councilmember Singleton.
I believe
I
you
think
need to
you're
unmute Mr. Singleton. We're not yet able to hear you. Okay. I'm sure you can hear me, Ms. Singleton. If you'll just nod your head, yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All
And
right.
Councilmember Vance.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. The agenda is adopted. Next item, presentations. I'm not aware of any. Ms. Gibson, I'm assuming that there are none, or you would have let me know.
Yes, sir. We have no presentations this evening.
Okay, thank you so very much. Okay, council, following our agenda, we are now to the section under consent. There are 7 items on our consent agenda this evening. Unless any council member desires to pull an item from the consent agenda, I will entertain a motion at this time that we approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank
Second.
you. Okay, motion made and properly seconded that the consent agenda be approved. Ms. Town Clerk, will you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Dellinger,
Aye.
Councilmember Matthews,
Aye.
Councilmember Singleton.
He may still be having some difficulty with his audio, I believe. I think he's
Okay.
working on it.
Okay, Councilmember Vance
Aye.
and Mayor Pro Tem Behringer.
Aye.
Okay, I declare that the majority of the council has approved the agenda, and so it is so ordered. Sure enough. The first item of business for the council is a public hearing. We have one public hearing this evening. And so this item will be a quasi-judicial hearing. All persons who have standing to participate must indicate whether or not he or she consents to the remote meeting prior to speaking or giving testimony, and I'll try to remind each speaker of that. Under state law, the parties are entitled to a fair hearing, and so I must ask council members, do any council members have a fixed opinion prior to the hearing that is not subject to change, or do you have you had any ex parte communications, have any close familial, business, or other associational relationship with an affected person, or have a financial interest in the outcome? If that is the case, you should indicate that at this time.
No.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I was in receipt of an email from a citizen, mostly regarded to UDO, but they did mention this project. It was sent this morning and I saw it this afternoon, but it has no influence on my opinion on this matter.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dellinger. Yeah. Okay. All right, let me say further, this is a fact-finding hearing and only competent material and substantial evidence that is not repetitive is allowed. Only expert witnesses based on training and experience may testify as to impacts on property values, traffic safety, and noise levels. Council members are only allowed to receive factual information during the hearing and are not allowed to discuss the case outside of the hearing. At this time, before I open the hearing, I will ask the town clerk to swear in all witnesses. Those would include town staff. And Ms. Gibson, is it true that we have signed up in advance at least 3 individuals who expect to give testimony during this hearing?
I'm sorry. Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay, and I'm going to mention their names to confirm that they are present and that they can be sworn in along with all the other witnesses. Is that your intent?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have signed up a Beth Blackman, a Paul Flaherty, and a Talton Earp. As far as
I'm
we
here.
know, okay. If you're here, please say please say your name if you don't mind.
This is
Blackman.
and this is Talton Art, and I'm here.
Okay.
Flaherty here.
Thank you. Thank you. As far as we know, Madam Clerk, there are no other persons who have signed to speak during this particular hearing. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. There are no other I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. At this time, I'm going to defer to the clerk, who will give the oath to our witnesses.
Okay. If everybody could raise their right hand, please. Do you solemnly, sincerely, truly declare and affirm that the evidence you provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you very much, Ms. Gibson. I don't believe there are any other preliminaries we need to do other than to go into the meeting itself. And so at this point, I'm going to open this public hearing. And I will recognize Mr. David Banford, who is a planning services manager, for his opening presentation. And Mr. Banford, I believe I am, will ask you if you consent, you will acknowledge you have been sworn and you consent to participate in this remote hearing.
I do.
Okay, so I recognize you at this time for your presentation. Okay, are you ready, Mr. Banford?
Yes. Is my PowerPoint pulled up for you to see?
Yes, we can see on the screen, Pearl Street Townhomes.
Okay. Mayor and Town Council, this is a conditional use zoning request with a conditional use subdivision plan. The location of the property is at the corner of Pearl Street in West Main, and also at the corner of Pearl Street and Parker Street. The total acreage of the property is approximately 2.166 acres. And this case did go to the Planning Commission after a meeting on January the 11th. And they did recommend approval and confirm staff's findings regarding plan consistency. This is a vicinity map of the rezoning site. A portion is on the north side of Parker Street, in between Parker Street and West Main. And there's also a tract south of Parker Street, southeast of the Garner baseball fields. This is a Google Street View looking south on Pearl Street, with the rezoning site over to the left side of the screen, and also farther south on the southwest corner of Pearl and Parker Street. This map shows the rezoning or the zoning pattern in this area of Garner. The property is zoned R9 single family. To the east, we have some more R9 zoning, and a little farther to the east is the Garner Recreation Center that is zoned Central Business District. To the north, across the railroad tracks, and also on the other side of West Garner Road, we have R9 single family zoning. To the west of the site, at the corner of West Main, we have a tract zone Central Business District. This is where the Pearl Street train depot is located, and also another town facility. To the west, across from Parker Street, we have R12 zoning single family, and the current use is baseball fields. To the south, we have some community retail zoning with some commercial uses that front along Highway 70 West. This chart shows the rezoning cases in this area of Garner. We have a conditional zoning case from 1997 on East Main Street, and the most recent case on file is the rezoning for the train depot from 2019, where the site was rezoned from R12 single family to Central Business District conditional use to 221. The existing zoning classification is R9 single family, and this allows at least 9,000 square foot lots. Density is around 4.84 units per acre. The requested zoning classification is Central Business District with conditions. The proposed use for the property are 28 unit townhomes on approximately 1.9 acres. Also proposed is a commercial lot at the corner of West Main and Pearl Street. This is just over a quarter acre. There is no site plan in for that commercial lot yet, so this will be reserved for future commercial use. This is a list of all the uses allowed in the Central Business District general use category. At the top left, we have townhomes as a permissible use. So this rezoning will allow townhomes. The applicant has proposed some conditions as part of this request. Out of the list of general uses allowed in the Central Business District, the applicant has proposed the following uses. We have uses under household living, which includes townhomes, condominiums, upper-story residential, uses under community service, uses under educational facilities and services, healthcare, entertainment, restaurants. We also have retail sales and service uses that are also proposed. This would include personal services, hair, beauty, and barbershops, financial institution and banks, repair-oriented uses, in indoor retail sales, indoor veterinarian kennels, and indoor manufacturing. In addition to the proposed permissible uses, the applicant has proposed the following conditions that would apply to the townhome development. Each dwelling unit constructed on the property shall contain a minimum of 1,300 square feet of heated gross floor area. Each townhouse unit shall have at least a one-car garage. The front facade of each townhouse unit will include the following treatments: a covered entry, at least 3 operable windows, at least 1 2-foot horizontal offset per every 2 units, garage doors with carriage hardware and windows. Each townhouse group, defined as a building containing 4 to 7 townhouse units, shall include at least 2 of the following siding types on the front facade: board and batten, horizontal lap siding, and or shake siding. Each townhouse group, defined as a building containing 4 to 7 townhouse units, shall include at least 2 colors, not including trim, on the front facade. All townhouse units shall have a minimum .046 gauge vinyl siding. All townhouse units shall have water table masonry at least 18 inches in height from the finished floor elevation. All residential building site elevations shall have at least 2 operable windows. All units shall have a minimum 8-inch roof overhang on front and rear. On end units of each townhouse group, the side roof overhang shall be 8-inch minimum. Minimum finished floor elevations for each unit shall be 18-inch higher than back of curb for units facing existing right-of-way. So that concludes the proposed conditions for the site. We had use conditions as well as conditions for the townhome development. Moving on to traffic. The site has approximately 96 feet of frontage along West Main Street, 710 feet of frontage along Pearl Street, and 350 feet of frontage along Parker Street. These roads are town maintained, so there are no NCDOT traffic counts available for this area. A traffic impact analysis was not required because the volumes are well within the capacity of a local town street. Alleys are also provided to limit turning movements and conflict points along both Pearl and Parker Streets. Moving on to the Garner Forward Comprehensive Plan, we will look at the future land use map. On the future land use map, the site is designated as town center and high density residential. The high density residential land use category recommends a density over 5 units per acre, and this could include single family duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, and townhome style residences. The town center category includes neighborhood commercial and townhomes and condos. The Garner floor plan has several opportunity sites. This opportunity site is for the Main Street area. In this sketch reflected a desire to maintain a commercial presence along Main Street and transitioning to higher density residential with parking located to the rear, moving southward along Pearl Street. The applicant has modified the original proposal to include commercial space and relocate parking to the rear. So on this map, the future commercial site that will be reserved for future development is up at the front with frontage along West Main Street at the southeast corner of West Main and Pearl Street. Zoning consistency statement. The requested rezoning from single-family residential R9 to Central Business District, Conditional Use District 234, with conditions, is consistent with the Garner Forward Comprehensive Plan's future land use map designation of high-density residential and town center. Town staff has also determined that the request may be found to advance some of the comprehensive plan's guiding principles for both living spaces and working places. That concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Manford. I guess I should have noted up front that, and I think council is well aware of this, we will hear the zoning presentation, which you've just given initially, and then we'll go into the CUP part, but we'll vote at the conclusion of both presentations. So at this time, I will ask council if you have questions for Mr. Banford or comments. I'll start with Ms. Behringer. Ms. Behringer, can you hear me okay? I believe you're muted at this time.
I have no questions. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll go to Mr. Vance.
No questions at this time.
Okay, Mr. Dellinger.
Just a question on the commercial parcel. What are the parking requirements once it's rezoned to Central Business District if there would eventually be a commercial, building structure there?
Sure. I believe that question would probably be better addressed with the next presentation on the CUP. There will be some parking that will be developed as part of this townhouse project that would serve the commercial lot. Commercial parking calculations are usually based on the specific use. So an office use would have a certain parking calculation, I believe, of one space per 400 square feet. Retail is one space per 200 square feet. So when that plan comes in, the parking would be evaluated at that time and would need to meet our parking standards.
And so the Central Business District is irrelevant with regards to the commercial use, is what you're saying?
Right. The Central Business District in this case would just be the permissible uses that could go on the site.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Matthews?
No question.
Okay, and Mr. Singleton? Any questions for this, for Mr. Bamford, Mr. Singleton?
I think he scrolls.
Okay, could you hear me okay, Mr. Singleton? Do you have any questions?
No, you froze up. No.
Okay. Okay. So if unless any other council members have any questions, we will move. Mr. Bamford, is the applicant have witnesses here, or do you know others? I have some names of folks who want to testify. I don't know if it's on this portion or if it's on the CUP.
Those are the applicants for the zoning case as well.
Okay. So if you have finished your presentation, no one else from town staff at this point plans to present. Is that right?
Yes, sir, I do. This is Stacy. I have the site plan portion.
Okay. Let me get any witnesses on the zoning portion, Stacy, if it's okay, before we go to you. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. The names I have, either Beth Blackman, Paul Flaherty, or Talton Earp. Do any of the three of you anticipate offering testimony on the zoning portion of this?
Mr. Mayor, this is Paul Flaherty. I'd like to comment after the next presentation.
Okay, thank you. Would that be true for Ms. Blackman and Mr. Earp as well?
Yes, we can just wait until the end.
Okay,
Yes, I agree.
all right. Okay, thank you very much. All right, we will proceed to the CUP portion of this, and Stacy, I believe you were the person to be recognized now.
Yes, sir. Let me share my screen here.
And I should ask you if you likewise consent to the remote hearing.
I do.
Thank you.
Are you able to see that? This should say subdivision plan conformity.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I can.
Yes.
Good. It gave me a little warning when I opened it up, so I just wanted to make sure.
All
Again,
is
this
well.
is the subdivision section of the Pearl Street Townhome Plan, 2.166 acres. There are 2 uses associated with this, a non-residential / commercial lot that fronts Main Street, as well as 28 townhome lots along Pearl and Parker Streets. The tree cover for this has a minimum of 14%, which is met and exceeded with new plantings. There are perimeter and street buffers. The north side of Parker Street has street buffers only, as it is all bounded on all 4 sides by roadways. The south side of Parker Street has 2 street buffers and 2 sides with perimeter buffers, which you'll see when we get to the site plan. Street trees in this case are provided approximately every 20 feet along public streets as required, because they are using understory trees due to the presence of overhead power lines. Overstory trees are provided along alleys where the utilities are underground. 10% open space is required for residential developments. In this case, they are providing 10.9%. The Parks and Recreation Cultural Resources Department does recommend a fee in lieu of parkland dedication in this instance. The Inspections Department, together with the Fire Department, has reviewed and approved this plan. This site does not contain any FEMA designated flood zones or floodways. This site is subject to stormwater quality requirements for nitrogen, as well as quantity requirements for the 1, 10, and 25-year storm events. This development plan, proposes a bioretention area to treat impervious surface for nitrogen and water quantity requirements. Bioretention was chosen as the area also serves as a visual front yards for several lots, and I'll point that out again when we get to the site plan. A nitrogen offset payment will be required. The site will be served with City of Raleigh public water and sewer. For roads and sidewalks, Pearl Street is currently paved from West Main to Parker and is gravel south of Parker. The entire frontage will be improved to half of a local street section. There might be slight width more where 2-way traffic must be accommodated. There will be curb, gutter, and sidewalk, and additional right-of-way will be dedicated. The site also has frontage on Parker Street, which will be improved to a local street section with additional right-of-way dedicated. The northern set of townhomes will be served by a 1-way public alley with entrance via a driveway on Parker and exits onto both Main and Pearl Streets. And the southern set of townhomes will be served by a 2-way public alley with a driveway on Pearl Street stubbing to the east to connect with future alleys serving commercial uses along Montague. There you see the site plan before you, with Pearl and Parker being your cross streets there. All of the units are rear loaded, and again, to the left of this plan, you have the two-way alley with 2 sets of townhomes, all the garages in the back, and you have a turnaround that's pointed out there, as well as the bioretention area. And that is the front of those townhomes, which is why a bioretention was used rather than a wet pond or something to that effect. There have been plants added to that bioretention area to dress that area up and make it more visually appealing so that they could also get open space credit for that area. And then on the right side on the screen of Parker Street, you have the one-way alley leading through the rear of the townhomes. Then you get to the parking lot that Councilman Dellinger was asking about. That is shared parking for the guest parking. We'll get to that. I think that was 10 spaces required and 10 provided between the requirement for guest parking as well as the kiosk. The commercial lot will be able to take advantage of that parking as well as other downtown parking that's on street. And the mail kiosk again is there in the parking lot. And then you see the commercial lot at the corner of Main and Pearl. For parking, as I said, each unit does have 2 spaces on their lot, which is required. And then townhomes do have the additional requirement for guest parking of 1 space per 4 units. Again, that is shared. So there's 10 spaces required and 10 provided. Lighting for the parking lot meets the requirements for the UDO as well as staff recommendations for LED lighting. Street lighting will be reviewed at construction drawing submittal. Continuation of decorative fixtures along West Main Street has been noted for discussion. The 2018 Garner Forward Transportation Plan does not call for improvements along Main, Parker, or Pearl Streets. Therefore, with the noted improvements, these plans may be considered consistent with the recommendation of the 2018 Transportation Plan. For the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Greenways Plan, the project site does not fall within a land acquisition area for that plan. Therefore, with the fee in lieu of parkland dedication, this project, as proposed, may be found to be in conformity with the Parks and Recreation, Open Space, and Greenways Master Plan. After sufficient review and plan revisions, staff finds that this project, as now proposed, conforms to the regulations of the Unified Development Ordinance, so long as the following project-specific conditions are met. 1, prior to receipt of approved plans, engineering inspection fees must be paid to the town of Garner. 2, prior to recordation of the first final plat, documents establishing an HOA and restrictive covenants shall be submitted to the planning director for review. 3, prior to issuance of the first building permit, all applicable water and sewer fees must be paid to the city of Raleigh, and the stormwater program administrator shall be in receipt of proof of payment for the required nitrogen offset payment to an approved mitigation bank. Prior to the issuance of each building permit, a fee in lieu of parkland dedication shall be paid to the town of Garner. And the developer shall be responsible for all roadway improvements as well. There is one condition that is not showing up on my screen for some reason. Must be the way I shared it, but also for a 6th condition, prior to the first CO, certificate of occupancy, a cross-access agreement shall be recorded with the Wake County Register of Deeds to allow both the commercial parcel and townhomes to access the parking lot. The Planning Commission did review this request at their January 11th meeting. By unanimous vote, the Planning Commission confirmed staff's findings in Section 7 that CUP SB 2007 Pearl Street Townhomes is in conformity with adopted town plans and policies. The commission further accepted staff statements regarding zoning consistency with the Garner Forward Comprehensive Plan being detailed in section 5 of this report as their own, and recommended approval of CUDZ 2009 to the town council by unanimous vote. Your sample motions, recommended motions, do start on page 158 and 160 of your agenda packet. I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I can put the site plan back up there as well if needed.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Griffin, and we'll do a round robin with the council to see if there are questions, and start this time with Mr. Vance. Mr. Vance, I don't hear from you yet.
Yes, I just asked to put the site plan back up. Just taking a look here. Don't have any questions. Not at this moment.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Singleton.
Yes, just to confirm, all street improvements on the half road segment improvement on Pearl Street, all are on the eastern side, and the Parker Street improvement on the north side is just up to the alley, correct? Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't. If I clicked on the site plan to try to unmute myself, it switched the plan. I believe that's correct, just to the alley.
Okay. One question on the alley, which borders the Garner Lions Club. That alley is curb and gutter on both sides?
I will have to let, I don't see Chris Johnson in here. Ms. Blackman can answer that to be sure.
Okay, so the alley, I know it's not as wide as a normal street, that's why it's an alley, but it may not have curb and gutter on it, correct?
Honestly, without looking at the plans, Mr. Singleton, I can't state that for a fact, and I can't zoom in far enough to see that.
Okay.
It was my understanding, this is Chris, it's my understanding it was curb and gutter, but I believe Beth can confirm that.
Okay, I'll ask Ms. Blackman then when we get there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Singleton. Mr. Matthews.
No questions this time, sir.
Okay, and Ms. Behringer.
No questions.
Okay, Mr. Dellinger.
You have a question about the parking. So a couple of questions. So all of the guest parking for all of these units will be located in the that north section with the commercial. Is that correct?
That's correct.
For even the ones that are all the way on the other side of down the road?
That's correct.
Is there any other on-street parking that's going to be created here? I know those are all really narrow streets. Is there going to be any place where there is already existing on-street parking, or there'll be any created?
There will not be any created as part of this development. I'm not sure what the actual linear footage is for the closest on-street parking, but there will be access to whatever other public parking is down there, certainly.
And in with the historic park across the street, is there any thought given to somehow preserving that parking for that site? I kind of envision, a busy commercial and then a party, and then they're parking all there, and there's no access for people who actually want to visit that park. Is there any thought given to that? I know that's not directly related to their application, but the parking's at a sort of a premium, so.
Yes, sir. They did not mention that. I don't know if Chris Johnson may have any thoughts as far as that's concerned or not.
Because ultimately that's public parking over there. Okay. We might want to revisit that.
Mr. Dellinger,
Mr. Dellinger, all the parking that's being utilized by the depot park currently is on town control property. So I believe we would have the ability to figure out signage or some other way to determine that that was used and reserved for the depot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I believe Mr. Johnson was going to weigh in, but maybe his comments have already been filled in by someone else.
Yes, sir, they have.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I believe we've touched with every council member. Anybody didn't have a question earlier? Anybody want to do a question at this time? If you will, let me know. Okay, hearing and seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Do you know who of the other witnesses desires to go first, or I could just call on one of those?
I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that they will be able to speak on as well. I don't know if Ms. Blackman wanted to answer any questions first or not.
Well, let me jump in. We're the applicant, myself and Talton Arp. This is Paul Flaherty, one of the owners. Mr. Mayor, Town Council, we appreciate you guys considering this project tonight. We also want to thank the planning staff for all the help they've helped us out through all the hurdles on this project. And just a little background with the project. My partner, Talton Arp, and I bought this property 15 plus years ago with an idea of try to redevelop it one day down the road. And we feel like today is the time. This is a good time. There's a lot of really good things happening downtown now. So we're here to answer any questions, myself, Talton Arp, or Beth from Timmons Group.
Mr. Flaherty, just for the record, I should have asked you, obviously, I assume you consent to this remote hearing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you are available for questions at this time by any of our council members, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Matthews, any questions for Mr. Flaherty?
No, sir, not at this time. I've, from when it was originally presented to us and as we've dealt with it, I'm quite familiar with it and just, I'm excited about what it's going to do for that area down there.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Vance, any questions?
I have no questions.
Ms. Behringer?
No questions. I'm just glad to see this development coming to fruition.
Okay. Mr. Dellinger, any questions for Mr. Flaherty?
I have just a question. There are a lot of conditions on the construction, and I guess I'm curious on 2 points. One, I'd like to see some elevations. That'd be helpful. Also, what was sort of the inspiration for all these different conditions, and what references did you make to the existing historic downtown Garner community in the design?
Well, I want to make sure that that the other people, Talton Arp and Beth, are part of answering any of these questions, this one and any going forward. But architecturally wise, well, let me go back to the conditions. The conditions were something that we negotiated out with the town. We were open-minded coming into this project and to listen to, whatever they wanted us to do. I mean, we've seen a lot of positive things happen to downtown Garner, so we want to be part of that. So I'll let Beth and Talton jump in too to see if they want to try to answer it, piggyback on that and further any of those questions.
Okay, just before I get to them, and we'll go to them right away, I was just going to see if Mr. Singleton had any questions for you, Mr. Flaherty.
No, sir. I have questions for Ms. Blackman.
Okay. Ms. Blackman, we'll recognize you at this time if you're ready.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. Beth Blackman. Do you want to ask me about the remote meeting?
Yes. Do you consent to the remote hearing?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. And by the way, just for the record, I believe, or our clerk probably has it, we usually ask people to give their name and address. We have your address here. You're 113 Lager Lane, Ms. Blackman?
Yeah. Yes, Lager Lane. Yes.
Okay, Lager. And Mr. Flaherty, 793, is that Balmoral Street?
Yes, sir. And then we've also got Talton Arp there. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Townsend, yeah, he hasn't spoken yet. Well, 109 Prestwick Drive, Clayton?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right. Well, very good. I'll recognize Ms. Blackman. Did you say you were ready for questions, or did you care to make any comment?
Well, I thought I'd try to address a couple that I noted that y'all had talked about earlier during the presentation. One was that about the road improvements that are proposed. So Parker Street, we have frontage for a short portion on both sides. So that portion to that alley that's next to the Garner Lions Club would be both sides, but then the south side of Parker would be improved as well to the edge of the town property. If somebody wanted to throw the site plan back up, if you're not remembering that. So it's kind of a little bit. And then Pearl Street obviously would be improving our frontage all the way down, but because the south side of Parker, south portion of Pearl Street is gravel, we have to pave the part we need on the other side as well. We would not be putting curb and gutter and sidewalk on the other side, but we would be paving so that you would have a 2-lane road. Yeah, this north-south and the plan being rotated, it's difficult to keep track of which direction we're talking about. And so the one-way alley is, we supered that in conversation with the town. So there is curb and gutter on the driveway side. I'm drawing a blank if we talked about just doing a curb strip on the north side, but that would be like a spill curb. That's not a, it wouldn't be a gutter curb. So all the drainage would drain towards the driveways, and we had some proposed catch basins on that side. And we do have some sample elevations, well, let me rephrase that, some sample pictures that Paul and Taunton went around and kind of pulled up as an example idea of, it's not really any one picture is what this should look like. It's more of a combination of kind of taking this from one and that from another. It's a unique situation being in a downtown location, and we want to make sure that it fits in, but that it also, you know, calls out that this is a little different location. This is not your typical front load garage sort of townhome look. It's going to be something a little different. But I am available for any other questions anybody else has.
Okay, thank you. Council, start with Mr. Dellinger this time.
Yeah, I guess I had these concerns the first time this came before council, and just with regards to some of the elevations and the lack of porches on the mock-ups or what you just showed there. And speaking to the surrounding community, I literally, you always say back of the envelope, I literally drove around every street in downtown Garner this afternoon and subdivided them into having no porch, or just a small stoop, a large stoop, small porch, and a large porch. And over half, and this is on Main Street, St. Mary's, Montague, Griffin, Bagwell, Rand Mill, Emory, Jones, Carroll, Purvis, and Garner Road. And over half of them have large porches. And the older the house, the larger the porch. But even some of the smaller homes have larger porches, or at least a space for 2 chairs. That was kind of the idea of a medium-sized porch. And, you know, reading up on a lot of this stuff coming into this meeting, porches are considered to be very important for socializing and community building, because people can sit out and see their neighbors. And I think it's evident when you survey, and again, I tallied them all up. That hot green on the side, those are some 60-70% on some of those streets that have large porches. And so I think it's an important element because they don't have backyards for socializing. It's something I'd really like for you to strongly consider incorporating as a condition to have a certain square footage of porch. It's even the ones you showed, they have the depth, and I like it. But the porch element is really that sort of, it's rife throughout downtown in the architecture. And I'd like to see some of that reflected so that it carries over into what you're doing to preserve kind of the historic, as much of the historic element, and not the historic at all because there are no townhomes, but to preserve some of that historic nature of having that porch on the front where people can sit and see their neighbors and interact a little bit. And I appreciate comments from all three of you on that idea.
Well, being on the design side, as far as the civil design, I will leave the actual elevations and commitments to the developers. I do know in some of those examples that were shown, they sort of had a row house sort of look, which is not what necessarily downtown Garner has, but that is a common downtown sort of look. I do know there was one with porches. I don't think they have decided on elevations, so that's the part we were trying to leave some flexibility in, and that some may have and some may not. But hopefully there wouldn't be. The goal was to set up conditions so that it wasn't a bland, everything looked the same sort of setup.
Okay, and perhaps some of the others will, the other two may want to weigh in, but let me get to any questions any other council member may have for Ms. Blackman at this time. Mr. Matthews, did you have any?
No, sir, not this time. Like I said, when previously looking at everything, I really like the uniqueness in design, and I do like the way you've got them. Each one looks a little differently, so to speak, rather than just a generic facing of it. So a couple of the renderings you have, that really caught my eye. That looked good. And give them all a little bit of an individual look there.
Okay, thanks, sir. Mr. Vance, anything for Ms. Blackman? You said no?
No questions.
Okay, and Mr. Singleton?
Yes, Ms. Blackman, again, going back to this alley that borders the Lions Club, there's no curb and gutter on the east side, just on the driveway side to the properties and also to the commercial property. And you said that, so I'm assuming the street is going to be elevated and I'll take it off to the stormwater. There will be no stormwater runoff, because I'm trying to sit here and think if there's not a ditch over there on the Lions Club, where's the stormwater supposed to go? If it falls to that side, that's my question: is where's that stormwater supposed to go if it doesn't go to the curb and gutter?
Well, so if it hits the very edge of the road of the alley that is on the Lions Club property line, because the road would be super elevated, that side is the higher side, and so then it goes from there towards the townhome units, towards the driveways, the lower side of the alley. So that plan view, that would be, the water is going to flow up the page the way that Stacy showed it earlier, but that it's flowing to the west. So anything that hits only Lions Club property stays on their property, deals with their property. Then when the water hits the edge of the alley, which would be on that property line or right at that property line, it would then flow into our site and be picked up by storm drainage on the lower side of the alley. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense. I understand. I just think that if the road's going to be higher on that, on the east side than the west side, which all makes sense. I understand how water flows downhill. It looks like to me that we're going to create on heavy rains, we're going to create a line of water sitting there against that asphalt. I mean, I just find it unusual we're going to put a property beside a property and have nowhere for the stormwater to go. That's just Gray's opinion. I just think it looks really strange to have a piece of asphalt just stop beside the property. And I know I'm making the assumption it's not going to go right to the property line in case there's something slightly off. And then I'm assuming either the homeowners are going to trim that where the grass grows up there or the Lions Club. I just can't remember the last time we did something that had an asphalt road and it borders another property, and what's going to happen with that stormwater. It just seems weird. It just seems unusual to me. Maybe it's another project I cannot recall that we've done recently. That's my biggest issue I have with this. I'm trying to see where the stormwaters can go.
Well, so they have a bit of a high point on their property, and then it currently falls a portion to Main Street and then a portion towards Parker Street. So that kind of line, honestly, it looks like they have sort of a ditch line going on their side of the property line, kind of out to Parker now as it is. So really, we should be putting less water towards them than they're getting now from the existing residential homes that are there, because we would, at that property line, shift it so that it's falling into our site. Part of the intention of putting some of these things were where these alleys could be potentially connected to in future, depending on how development or redevelopment of this area continues, you know, particularly on the south side of Parker. But there would also be potential for, you know, if the Lions Club property ever redeveloped differently, then there wouldn't be a strip of open space that somebody would have to negotiate to be able to access an alley in the future.
Okay. All right. That's all I have right now, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, sir. Ms. Behringer, I don't believe I've gotten to you for Ms. Blackman yet.
I have no questions, so thank you.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to hear from Mr. Earp?
Yes. It's Talton Earp, and I just want to let you know I do consent to the remote hearing.
Thank you, sir.
I wanted to elaborate a little bit on the porches. I think it was Mr. Dillinger that was talking about the porches. The pictures that we provided really was just to get the color effect. We want to have a variety of the blues and the yellows and the colors. And I think there's some brown ones in there that have the front porches like he's speaking of. Due to our restraint of how much land we do have, we do want to provide some porches on the front for the two seats. It does make a lot of sense. We are limited on grass space. So I agree with Mr. Dillinger on that. But I think that we were looking to show the multiple roof lines, the different dormers and the gables from those pictures, and then also a few pictures of, here on the center right, it's the brown ones. Those right there, I love those front porches on a few of them. Yes, the left one does have a small one, which when we get to our architectural committee, we can kind of adjust that a little bit. But I'm really looking at the colors of the other ones, not more or less the little porches and the little stoops. We were just loving the colors of it. Even the bottom left, it's kind of bland, but it was just kind of showing the vertical, the horizontal, and the different textures that we're going to go with. But I do agree with Mr. Dillinger that the front porches are a phenomenal idea, and that's something we're going to have to sit down and make sure it works with our size lots. And I think we'll be able to work with that. That's not a huge issue. I think Paul and I are already thinking of the front porch idea since it's more of a rear load. So there's not a lot of sitting out back, not a lot of grass space. We're going to have to create the porches. But I think we're kind of looking at the center right area is really our idea. We just want a little more color and a little bit more. Those are all horizontal siding. We want to doll it up with colors and the different 3 types of siding that we had already talked about. So, and I mean, if you guys got any other questions, I mean, Paul and I are just extremely excited about this project. We're you know, if you've been down Pearl Street, I don't know if anybody's ran by this or anything or drove by. We're just real excited about seeing this completed and something new, a nice new look, and a lot of new homeowners down there, you know?
I'll say, like, I do like the elevations of those that you pointed out, the mixed up fronts and all that. And I think that those types of porches are a little bit more is just perfect. And I love the idea of the colors too. I kept thinking about the painted ladies in San Francisco, right? Where you kind of create this attraction, this like really great aesthetic feel and liveliness to it. So I'm glad you guys are considering that. I really am. It's very, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And let me see, Mr. Earp, I'll give other council members, anybody who has a question for you. Mr. Vance, anything for Mr. Earp?
No questions.
Okay, Ms. Behringer?
None, thank you.
Mr. Matthews? I need you to unmute Mr. Matthews.
Sorry, I got Mr. Behringer's situation now. I'm trying to get out of that.
Don't blame it on me. Blame it on me.
But I agree with Mr. Dillinger. I like the colors, what you guys are really coming up with down there. I think it's going to look really great. And I've ridden this past weekend. I was riding around down there from one end to the other and thinking, even on the other side, past the businesses, some of the rundown areas there, that how well this would look and really stimulate growth down in that area where young people could move in, or seniors just don't, they want nice walking ability to go downtown there and help those businesses and all that's coming. I think this thing's going to round out really well. And not only I really support this side, I'm looking for the other side of it down there, and so we'll let it all meet in the middle. I think we've got a new concept here that's going to be really great for that area down there, and I think it'll really bring new people in and help those businesses down at the same time. So I agree with Mr. Dillinger. I like what you guys are coming up with.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Singleton, I believe I didn't give you a chance for Mr.
I have the same concern Mr. Dillinger has. I also have the concern of this. This is going to be a somewhat transformative property downtown. Shouldn't we see the elevations first? I mean, seeing a mixed bag and say we're going to pick some of everything, shouldn't we see what this is going to look like first? Because what if it gets out there and we're like, that's not exactly what we thought it was going to look like? I mean, this is a transformative type property with 28 townhomes and the business lot. I think we should see. I think we should see what it's going to look like and say we're going to think about it. I think the point Mr. Dillinger makes is a good point, but again, I just think we should see what this should look like. This is not like some other. Downtown area is very limited on where you can put projects, and so if this is going to be transformative, my concern is I think we should see the elevations before we decide what to do with the project. Then we'll know the porches are on there or not. Saying it and doing it, I mean, we've heard a lot from people. I'm not discounting y'all at all, not at all. I know Ms. Blackman does excellent work. I'm not questioning her at all. I'm just saying if this is going to be so transformative, shouldn't we see what it looks like first? I mean, the building spot beside the rec center, we're going to see what that looks like before we approve it. I'm just thinking out loud here. Not addressing any one person in particular, maybe just to the council. Maybe I don't mind or care what it looks like. I don't know. I just some of the pictures they showed us look fine, and some of them did not look so fine. Gray's opinion.
Okay.
I think the developer, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I think that given the opportunity and the investment that you made in downtown, you want to create something that's really going to be precedent setting. And I think that's kind of what Mr. Singleton's getting at, is you want to set the precedent for what Garner wants to see down there. So when other developers come through, they say, oh, this is what they want, and not see something and then be like, oh, that's what they want. And it's a repeat of something that's not that great. So I hear what Mr. Singleton's saying, and I kind of agree, because you're like that close. I mean, we all love the project. We love the location. We love everything about it. It's the last piece of it being sort of this major kickoff project for downtown, and we want to be a partner in that. But it's transformative.
Okay. Anything else from council or responses from the applicant or comments regarding issues raised by Mr. Dillinger and Mr. Singleton?
Mr. Mayor, I think that Mr. Singleton makes a very good point. It would be good, much more comforting, or whatever we call it, to see what the elevations are actually going to look like before we give the okay. I like the look of all of it, and I trust the developer, but I still would like to see what we're going to be seeing every day.
Okay.
I state this, Mr. Mayor. I go to the two homes that were newly built at the intersection of Garner Road and Center Street. True, the council didn't see those elevations, but the builder of those two homes are spot on with something that looks modern, but not too modern. It blends in with the older architecture. Looks really nice. I mean, a row of those down Garner Road there would look wonderful. That developer and those two homes did an outstanding job of something that blends in, but also is up to date. That's just what I'm just again, this is transformative across from some town property. It's again, the first new residential development in that block for gosh knows how long, other than the apartments that the Mr. Sod did years ago. It's the kickoff of that. So
Yes.
I just think we should know what it looks like.
Are there any other witnesses for the applicant? I'm assuming the three of you whose names I have here are the only ones. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that's correct. It's Paul, Beth, and I.
Okay. Well, I'll just comment that based on the comments I'm hearing from council, I don't think anybody is certainly opposed to the rezoning in the project. I'm not going to assume that, but these what I call sort of technical matters and desiring maybe more information from the applicant about the issues raised here would seem to push this in the very positive direction we need to go in. I can ask council for a motion of some type. I'm hearing almost a potential request to postpone this slightly and see if the applicant can come back with more specific information that the council is inquiring about.
I get a question for maybe the attorney. Is it prudent or imprudent to vote on the zoning and then leave the permit open, or we want to postpone both of them? I don't know which one is better.
So technically you could do either one. You could vote on one and postpone the other, but I think you might want to hear from the applicant as to whether they're okay with going forward with only one vote tonight, or whether they want to present on both of these issues before you vote.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jones. And yeah, so I was initially thinking along the lines that Mr. Dellinger was, that you could potentially go ahead and vote on the rezoning and then hold off on the other. But who wants to speak for the applicant in regards to that particular question and issue?
I think we're okay. Well, Beth, the town can do me. I think we're okay with voting on the zoning part and then maybe tabling the rest of it.
Can I ask a question really quick there? So the written conditions are part of the zoning, and I don't see those changing. Like you would be voting on those, and then the elevations would be part of the site plan, the subdivision plan package, and that would be where they would be okay. I just procedurally why I'm just trying to make sure that I'm following how it would work.
What you just said is my general understanding, but I'll ask others to weigh in, or even somebody in Mr. Triesenberg's department to weigh in on that.
We would want any architectural requirements or other zoning conditions tied to the zoning portion, not the site plan portion.
Right.
Okay.
And that's understandable because that's where they're at now. That's where they're currently at, as Ms. Blackman was stating, and 2 through number 12, I believe, the numerous architectural standards are in there. So I think that we should just table the matter until we get a more defined set of elevations for the project.
Okay, I'm prepared to entertain a motion to that effect. I think when these issues come up, we have inquired of our attorney in the past if tabling is a proper motion, or is it a matter of continuing the hearing. Trying to remember procedurally if that doesn't require us to go back through some of the presentation, or what's the advantage either way, Ms. Jones?
I think the advantage is if you continue it on the record, it does not have to be re-advertised in the newspaper. So you would have to continue it to a date certain, either the first meeting of the month or the second meeting of the month, but you would have to pick a date that is spelled out, a date and time.
Okay. Whereas tabling the issue would would require, again, notice as we would have done at the beginning, right?
Right. Technically, tabling, you would need a motion to bring it off the table and back on the agenda, so it would potentially cause it to go to 2 subsequent meetings.
We don't want to do that.
Or the advertising requirement.
Right, okay. So just before the motion, Gray, if you're prepared for that, I guess I would ask her if the applicant, if that's the direction we're moving in, has a date certain that they would like to see or would be prepared to offer up new information if that's the action we take.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Triesenberg has his hand raised.
Oh, okay. Mr. Triesenberg, let us hear from you, sir.
Thank you. I don't mean to throw another kink potentially into the process, but I guess my question is whether or not the applicants can have this information in time for the March 1st meeting, because that is the date that we will be entertaining the 160D changes. And this is currently going through under the existing review process, and we would be changing process midstream, and that might get a little difficult. So I'm just curious if the applicant thinks that they could have something in time for March 1st.
I'd say that's pretty difficult, considering we don't have any plans right now. So we're going to have to have those drawn up. I mean, we've got some ideas and we've got some preliminary plans, but there's going to obviously have to be some thought into this and some changes on some of the, things that we've got in place right now. So I think March 1st, and Beth, you tell me if I'm wrong, I think March 1st might be a little difficult.
Well, I have a question, because when you said preliminary plans, can we just have not like full-on elevations, but just sketches? How detailed would you want to see to know that what you were getting? But yes, I don't know how far backed up architects are right now.
I think going to Mr. Singleton's point, we need to have enough of a rendering, I guess, to translate that into a condition. Is that your thinking, Mr. Singleton?
I think, well, I know you feel strongly about the porches, which they're certainly open to, so that's a positive. I just think we need to see what it's going to look like, because showing us 6 or 7 or 8 different townhomes, and you want a little bit of everything. Well, what does a little bit of everything mean? Sketches are fine if we can see some color and just see some ideas of what it's going to look like. I don't expect them to bring us full-blown elevations, but we need to have some idea of what it's going to look like, other than 25 different pictures and saying it's going to look like a combination of this, because that could be a combination of anything. Any questions? Mr. Triesenberg has his hand back up, Mr. Mayor. I was going to ask Mr. Triesenberg, since you started the process in this other way before the 160, we can't continue it the way it's been because that's the way it started?
We were trying to make a clean break of things so as not to confuse the matter, but I defer to Ms. Jones on that as to what she thinks. My recommendation would be is if you all are okay with the idea that we could do a sketch and staff could work with the applicant to come up with some revised conditions that hopefully you all might feel more comfortable with, that are representative of that sketch when it's done. Because we had talked about some of these items early on, and I think there was just, again, because they didn't have a builder lined up, some hesitancy to commit to certain things. So I feel that I have in my mind some possible conditions that we could work with and play with, and hopefully get back to you if we can get a sketch to go with it, if you all are comfortable with that.
Do you think that, I know the time is a short month, by our next week, our work session, and we could have something and then be ready to move at the first meeting? Or is that turnaround even shorter for them? That's unrealistic.
Yeah, that
I'm not looking at my calendar.
Yeah.
Those items are actually due today and tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, it's short months.
Mr. Mayor.
So I mean, we couldn't. I mean, a month. I mean, it's something. March 16th is going to be the second meeting, just like today, February 16th. Is that a possibility? I mean, you said you didn't want to confuse the 160, but again, I'm sorry. If we started it, it's like everything else I'll say, if we start a process, you know, they have to follow those rules when we enact new things like the new park fee in lieu of. Well, so if they started, that's the one they started with. So I'm just curious on this particular one, if this is the last one that's under the current process. I reckon Ms. Jones may have to answer that. I'm not sure. I'm not trying to make it confusing, but I don't want also, it's unrealistic to ask them to do something in a week or two that they probably cannot be able to do. I understand that. And they might not be able to do it in a month, but you know, we should give them the time.
Let's hear from Ms. Jones on that, and then Mr. Matthews, I know you want to weigh in, so Ms. Jones.
So under the state enabling law that adopted Chapter 160D, conditional district zoning and conditional use permits will automatically change to conditional zoning and special use permits either on July 1st of this year or when the town adopts its Chapter 160D revisions to the UDO. So unlike other ordinances where you could delay the effective date or perhaps grandfather certain projects in, you don't have the option. So, and as Mr. Triesenberg said, we were trying to make sure no one got caught in this somewhat uncharted territory of what exactly that means when it automatically converts and the process has not concluded yet.
Okay. So bottom line I'm hearing you say is there's a lot of advantages to going ahead and trying to do this by March 1 if we're going to require that, or we have to sort of back up and recalculate. But Phil, go ahead. What were you?
Yes, sir, Mayor. I'm hearing what my counterparts are saying. I think what you're going to present to us is probably one or two of those renderings you have on there. So to bring some sort of this whole program together where we could deal with it on March, is it impossible that you guys could not take, because we all said we like quite a few of them in there, and we're not trying to pin you down, so to speak, on one particular, but if there's one or two of those renderings you like, which we liked, bring that one back and say, this is the one we're going to run with. That way we could deal with it on March 1st, if that would work with you guys. Just a thought.
I think I followed that as far as if you took the one that had porches, but then you said, let's change up the siding look and the color, that would probably fix things, but that's just a picture from somebody else, and so we don't have plans at all to go with that. So it would have to still be sort of an idea that this is what it's going to look like, and then work with Mr. Triesenberg and planning staff to get it to the actual final elevation version.
I think that's the point we're trying to make. This is what it's going to look like. That's going to give us an idea as to what you're going to put in there versus 8 different versions. Say it's going to be a combination. I'm trying to work this where it'll be acceptable to everybody and we can move forward and make this cutoff date here. So
I appreciate that. That cutoff date is very challenging.
Yeah, but I think it's nothing. It can't be worked out if you put your heads together, and we're willing to try to work with is what I'm hearing from everybody else, so we can make this cutoff date and not have to change the rules after the fact. So I'm going to yield back to you guys as presenting this. Is there a way you can give us somewhat of a rendering of what you want to really put in there? And I think that's what I'm hearing my counterparts saying. We just want to see kind of what you're going to put in there, not 8 different versions. Yield back to you guys.
Well, and to Mr. Matthews' point, I don't think we're trying to box you in too tight either. We want to still be flexible. We're not going to come back and say, hey, it wasn't exactly like the sketch you did. I think, yeah, we want to work with you for sure.
So for lack of better description, a cut and paste is something that might be, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Mr. Triesenberg, of course, you've heard the discussion, and I believe I heard you say you would be willing to work with these guys to see if we can bring something back that seems to be fitting the notion of what the council is looking for. That doesn't squeeze you unnecessarily, I assume.
No, I don't believe so. And we may be able to accommodate a little bit more time. We've been scrambling behind the scenes here. We don't have anything on our schedule for the 16th meeting in March. So it's possible we could still discuss 160D perhaps on the 1st, but not adopt it until the second meeting, and that could potentially give us a couple more weeks to work this out.
Okay, sure.
I was going to mention that in theory, technically, if you entertained this project before you actually adopted the 160D amendments in the same meeting, it would just be sequencing it on the agenda. Of course, there's the risk that if for some reason you're not satisfied with the project, we'll be in the same situation or worse because it'll be on the same agenda.
Okay. So procedurally at this point, I believe I would be correct to say, Ms. Jones, I would not be closing this hearing, but if the motion is to continue, then we will continue to a date certain, and the hearing will just be reopened on that date.
That would be correct, whether that's March 1st or March 16th.
Okay. All right.
Okay, let me ask this question then, Ms. Jones. Since we think the 16th is going to be a more ideal date because the 1st is really rushing them to do something, can we put it at the 1st, and if it's not ready then at the 1st continue to the 16th, or should we just shoot for the 16th tonight?
You can do either one. It would require putting it on the agenda and then, again, a similar continuance.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I'm just trying to make it just by chance if they got something. I don't expect them before March 16th, but what if they got it ready before then? We don't have to advertise it, so you could add it to the agenda. So I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that we continue this item, this conditional zoning, and this CUP until our meeting March 16th, Tuesday, March the 16th, 2021.
Second. Okay, thank you, Mr. Singleton. So motion properly made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Vance seconded that, I believe. Okay. All right, so council clear on the motion. So does the applicant have any other question or comment before we vote?
Question,
Mr. Vance?
Yes. Is it possible if they have the renderings or sketches available before the 16th that the council can review them in preparation for the meeting?
I would think so, but again, procedurally otherwise, I don't know of any reason why they couldn't be offered up to council for review prior to the meeting if they're ready. What say you, applicant?
Yeah, as long as you guys, it works for us.
Okay.
And whenever we're done, we can start the process of handing it to the town. I'll let Beth.
Well, I was going to say, we can definitely turn them into staff. As far as the rest of the conversation, I'm sure Ms. Jones can weigh in on how exactly that works. If we can, I think you can talk to staff about them, is my understanding. Maybe.
Yes, okay.
Council would just need to disclose any ex parte communications they have regarding the plans, but I don't see a problem with you receiving the plans any differently than you receive the staff report in advance of the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jones. Okay. All right, any other question before call for the vote? Thank you, Mr. Vance. That answer your question, sir?
Yes, it answers my question.
Okay. All right. The council, if you're ready to vote, I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll. If you favor the motion as presented, please vote aye. If you do not favor the motion to continue this to the 16th, then vote no. Ms. Gibson, will you call the council roll?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Matthews,
Aye.
Councilmember Singleton,
Aye.
Councilmember Vance,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Behringer,
Aye.
and Councilmember Dellinger.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The motion obviously passes with a unanimous vote, and this matter will be continued until the 16th, with the understanding that if the applicant has some drawings available ahead of time, working through staff, I'm sure we can get these to council. And again, I would say to the applicant, we appreciate your indulgence. Again, I sense that the council and certainly the mayor is excited about what you're planning for down there. I think if we can get over this this one area of concern, we'll be well on our way. But thank you for your understanding. Okay.
Thank you for working with us.
Yeah.
Okay. So the matter is properly continued, and we will thank you all for your time. We will move to the next item on the agenda before we take a break. So the next item was the only public hearing. We now go into the section of the agenda under new and old business. There are several items there. The first one has to do with the presentation by our assistant manager, Mr. Roy Lance, regarding Boling-Singletary property acquisition. Mr. Roy Lance, I will recognize you at this time, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Mayor and council members. I've got a brief presentation. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll get started. All right. Yes, as you mentioned, this is an agenda item about the acquisition of the Boling-Singletary property. This is a property that was brought to us by the Conservation Fund, which is a nonprofit organization that is active in our area when it comes to acquiring land that's, sensitive environmental areas that could potentially be preserved and used in their non-developed state. So they brought this property to us. You can see here where it's located off of 401 in what is a very rapidly growing part of town. And it wanted to go ahead and show you a little bit about our comprehensive plan that the Parks Department did some time ago, within the last 18 months or so, that highlighted some areas where we needed to acquire future parkland. And those are the areas that are in purple here. And then you can see the gray area here is the property in question. So we were, of course, interested for sure when it was brought to us by the Conservation Fund, because it's a good fit for where we know that we're growing and we need more park property. This is actually, most of it is in one parcel, but it's technically 6 parcels that combine make up a little over 90 acres. And as you saw on the previous slide, it's adjacent, actually directly connects there to about 2,000 acres of publicly owned land that runs this way. So it's got a very nice connection. I mean, 90 acres is by itself significant, but particularly when you attach it to all that other acreage, there's a lot of possibilities in the future. The total cost to acquire this property from all the partners would be about $1 million. But one of the really nice things about this land is that it is a partnership. The city of Raleigh and Wake County both have an interest in seeing the land protected as well. And they are putting in $400,000 apiece, which brings the town's investment down to $224,750. So when you think about that on a per acre basis, it's about $2,500 an acre, which is, admittedly not all of this land would be developable because of some of the wet areas, but that's a pretty darn good price. So to be able to get 90 acres that we can use for recreation purposes at that price is definitely attractive. We have money available in our parks fee and lieu fund, which is comes from new development and is intended to acquire parkland that can be used for recreation. So we have a balance roughly $1.5 million in that fund right now, so more than enough money to acquire this property and still leave us more money there to do other things in the future. There are, as I've said before, multiple entities that are involved in the purchase, but the town would ultimately be the title holder, and we would be responsible for maintenance of the property. Our primary interest in the property is to use it for greenways and trails. And I'll show you on some of the maps here in a minute, but there's a lot of potential connections. The possibility of connecting eventually to Garner Magnet High School, as well as Yates Mill County Park, and also Lake Benson and Lake Wheeler Park. So it's really in a pivotal place for future greenway development, and it aligns with the greenway plans that we've got here. I'll just briefly show you. Wake County, and again, you're looking for this area and all the plans. This is Wake County's greenway system plan, where they show not only a greenway connecting Lake Benson and Lake Wheeler in the future, but also connecting up to Yates Mill County Park and beyond. So it fits very nicely in the county's greenway plan, which is important because there are also potential funding opportunities for the construction of a greenway with Wake County. So the fact that it aligns with Wake County's plan is a plus for us in the future. It also, as you can see, it fits in with the Garner Forward Transportation Plan, and then also with our own Parks and Rec Comprehensive Master Plan. So just a lot of connection possibilities. And now this is not a completely traditional park property. It does come with restrictions, and this is basically a natural area that would have to remain mostly natural, but it still has a lot of recreation potential. And because of its key location for trail connectivity and in an area where we are rapidly growing, and the fact that trails are one of the most requested features that came out of our comprehensive plan and citizen and resident survey recently, and the price, we think it makes a lot of sense. So what we're asking for you to do tonight is to, I'll stop after this for questions, but asking you to approve the funding agreement with, basically just the allocation of money and who would pay what. And there is also a conservation easement that details the restrictions that go on the property. We would ask both of those to be subject to the town attorney's final approval. There's some minor wording changes that they've been approved by Wake County and by Raleigh, our other funding partners, but there are still a couple of minor details to be worked out that would either be completely minor or would, if anything, be to the town's benefit. For example, on the conservation easement, we're still discussing whether we could slightly relax some of the requirements there. As it stands now, even with the current restrictions, we believe we could do everything we need to do in terms of building a trail, having parking areas, and that kind of thing. But we are negotiating some slightly relaxed requirements just to give us a little bit of flexibility in the future. But in any event, it would be either the way it looks now or slightly to the town's benefit. So, but those changes would all be very minor, and we would like you to go ahead and approve it tonight because the closing for the property is scheduled this month before your next meeting, and so we feel like it's 99% there, and would also, for that reason, like you to consider approving the attached budget amendment as well, which would take the money from B and Lieu, which is the proposed funding source that we described, and allocate that in our budget so that we would be ready to use that money for closing. So with that, I will, first of all, I will try to stop sharing my screen. There we go. And open it up for questions or comments if I can help with any.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roy Lance. Appreciate your presentation. And by the way, in the agenda packet, it alludes to an ordinance, but I know we're being asked to approve the funding agreement and budget amendment. I don't know if we need to cite an ordinance for that or not. I don't think I ever put my eyes on the ordinance itself, but at any rate, let me see if council has questions in regards to presentation and the request. So I'll start with Mr. Singleton.
No, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'll be ready to make a motion whenever the time's appropriate.
Okay, I think we'll be there pretty soon. Ms. Behringer?
No questions. I would agree with Mr. Singleton. It's let us know when.
Okay, Mr. Vance, any questions?
You're muted.
Mr. Vance, I believe you are muted at this time, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's Councilwoman Barron's fault.
Hey. You guys better watch out.
We're ready to move forward.
Okay, you have no questions.
Okay.
I'll ask the clerk to strike that first comment.
Too late. I heard it.
I'm sure we're not formally doing that. Mr. Matthews, any questions? You're muted also, Mr. Matthews.
I got her issues also. No questions.
Okay, thank you.
Pitiful.
Okay, Mr. Dellinger.
No questions. Just glad to see this come all the way through the pipe and engaging us early so that we're prepared.
Yeah, okay. And I don't want to belabor the point. I know obviously our town manager, Mr. Dixon, and I had a chance to certainly walk through a portion of this property. It's quite a interesting place, sure enough. And so, Mr. Singleton, I believe you said that you were ready with a motion.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I move that we approve the funding agreement and the conservation easement purchase of this Boling-Singletary property, subject to our town attorney approval.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion made, properly seconded by Mr. Vance, and council ready to vote. Any question? Go ahead, Mr. Roy Vance.
Sorry, I may have misheard. If so, I apologize. But did you mention the budget amendment as well as the conservation easement?
I thought that might require a separate motion, so that's what I was going to do.
Sorry. Okay.
Yes, and it is an ordinance, the budget amendment. Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I thought I'd do that separate. So I'll do that after we vote on this message. If it needs to be, I'll make that a motion.
Okay. So we'll call for the question and ask the clerk to call the roll. If you favor the motion, please vote aye. If you don't, vote no.
Councilmember Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Vance?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Berenger?
Aye.
Councilmember Dellinger?
Aye.
And Councilmember Matthews?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So that passes obviously unanimously. And let's see, to clean this up and clear this up, Gray, you were going to make second
Yes, sir.
motion?
So, Mr. Mayor, I move we approve ordinance 2021-5017, ordinance amending the budget to purchase this land acquisition from the fee in lieu of parkland account in the amount of $224,750.
Second.
Okay, motion properly made and seconded. Okay, if you favor the motion, please vote aye. If you don't, vote no. And Ms. Gibson will call the roll.
Councilmember Vance?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Berenger?
Aye.
Councilmember Dellinger?
Aye.
Councilmember Matthews?
Aye.
And Councilmember Singleton?
Aye.
Okay, again, the vote is unanimous. Thank you, council. Mr. Roy Lance, I believe, have we covered all the technical aspects of getting that approved, I think now, with the two motions?
Yes, I believe so. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, council. This should be a prize for the town of Garner, sharing with the cost of that with our sister institutions over there. So hopefully that will work out quite well. I'm inclined to go ahead and go to item 2 on the agenda before we take our break.
Mr. Dickerson has a question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, excuse me. Mr. Dixon.
Oh, I was just trying to clear up that there was an ordinance in that topic. It was the budget amendment. I think you thought there was some confusion about whether there was an ordinance there, but
okay. Yeah,
everything's fine.
I was looking at
We
it.
got
In
a new
my
number.
I just didn't find it in my hard copy of the agenda.
Yeah.
Mr. Manager, yeah, okay, all right. Okay, Mr. Roy Lance, are you ready to proceed with item number 2, resolution on town-sponsored events, and I know we have a presenter also on this item.
Yes, sir, I am. Thank you. I'm just going to give a brief background. I know it's an issue that you all are familiar with, but just wanted to spend a couple of minutes orienting anybody that might be watching the meeting to give them a little bit of context, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Ellis.
Okay.
This issue that we're going to talk about in a minute dates back, well, really a number of years, but has to do with the town's Christmas parade. That's an event that the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Department has been running for about the last 15 years. Of course, the parade itself has been around for much longer than that. It used to be run by the J.C.'s, and before that, the Chamber of Commerce. So it does have a long history, although the town's involvement in it has been in more recent years. In the last few years, we have gotten some complaints or concerns and feedback from both participants and spectators about the Sons of Confederate Veterans participating in the parade. And those issues really came to a head in 2019 when we got some significant concerns and comments that people were going to disrupt the event because of that issue. And after giving it a lot of thought, we reluctantly decided the best option was to cancel the parade that year because of public safety concerns. Not only for our spectators, but also participants in the parade and staff. If you're expecting to go to a traditional Christmas parade event only to find that it has turned into a protest with the potential for conflict, that is not a good situation, and not the expectation that the Cub Scout group and the dance troupe that's going to march in the parade is probably expecting, or would their parents be. So we felt like it was best to go ahead and cancel the parade at that year, which we did, and there was a considerable amount of discussion on that decision. Since that time, we have been working with an attorney, Nick Ellis, who is a partner with the law firm of Pointer and Spruill, to help us think about what our approach should be in the future on this issue, because there's significant legal issues when it comes to freedom of speech and other things like that. Nick has considerable experience representing local governments when it comes to constitutional issues, really very much similar to this. And so he's been of tremendous help, both behind the scenes and in conversations with staff and council members along the way. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Nick, and he's going to walk through the issues at hand and his recommendations for how the town might move forward.
Okay, Matt, thank you. Mr. Mayor and Council, it's nice to see you again. And I'll try to be fairly succinct in what we're going to talk about, because you have had this before you on several prior occasions. But what we have before us tonight would be the consideration of the adoption of a resolution, and then similarly the adoption of an administrative policy that would put into force and carry out the effect of the resolution. I believe that these are found in pages beginning at 210 through, I believe, 218 of your agenda package.
That is correct, yes.
And so what I want to do is just go through the resolution, point out the highlights of it again for you. Again, you've looked at it before, had discussions about it in closed session. But really what the resolution does is recognize some things that are important to the town council, recognize some things that are going around in the world before us, and then trying to reconcile what the town council, what its vision is, what the town's vision is, and then primarily what the town is trying to impart through events that it is sponsoring. So the resolution, first of all, recognizes and adopts really the vision statement of the town, which is that the town nurtures a hometown environment for residents and businesses while encouraging new economic, recreational, and cultural opportunities through wise planning and investment. The resolution then goes on to say that when the town speaks, it is trying to speak in a way that incorporates, reflects, and further promotes the traits and principles that are contained in its vision statement. And it recognizes then in the resolution that when the town sponsors these events, that this is how the town, or this is one way that the town does communicate its vision, does communicate and promote the principles that it wants to see reflected in actions taken by the town in its official capacity. Next, the resolution says that when the town does speak, and does speak through these town-sponsored events, that it wants to have participation, but it wants to have that participation similarly reflect and give messages that are consistent with the principles that the town is promoting through the vision statement. The resolution also states, and I think this was really something that that Councilperson Behringer brought up on several occasions, that the town, when it has these events, it wants to promote public safety. Safety for the public, safety for the participants, safety for town employees and staff, and that is certainly one of the principles that the town, through the adoption of this resolution, would promote and state to the public. It next states that the town is resolving to have a policy. Again, the policy will effectuate the principles and concepts that are being addressed in the resolution, but that the town would resolve to have and adopt a policy that does promote participation in these events where the participants are carrying out and presenting a message that is in harmony with the town's message, and additionally to put in place policy actions that will again help promote public safety. So it concludes with the town resolving and recognizing that town-sponsored events, this is where we get to the constitutional element, that the town-sponsored events are government speech. They're not public speech, but they are government speech, and the government is speaking not in a public forum for purposes of the First Amendment rights of individuals. And so to, again, carry out the town speech, how the town wants to speak and how it wants participants in town-sponsored events to speak, recognizes and resolves that you find that there may be signs, designs, runes, R-U-N-E-S, which is it's a word we don't hear about very often, but that is an ancient Germanic alphabet is what it's referring to. And that if participants are going to have symbols, we'll generically group them as symbols, that those symbols need to be consistent with the town's message. So therefore, the town, through this resolution, resolves that when it is having a town-sponsored event, that it does not want to involve or permit participation by individuals or organizations who will be communicating through symbols, and those symbols are found to be inconsistent with the town's message. And that those symbols are ones that can be detrimental to public safety, and so that the town, through the resolution and the adoption of a corresponding policy, the town is trying to say that we want, when we speak, to have this to be a safe event for, again, the participants, public, town staff, others involved. And so the resolution on page 4 of the actual resolution says that therefore that the town will only allow participants in these town-sponsored events that display or communicate messages that are consistent with the town's own message and that are not detrimental to public safety. So that would be, in essence, the highlight main points of the resolution. As far as the policy is concerned, and again, the policy is just going to be the way that the principles pronounced in the resolution are going to be put into place. But this is how you let the public know that there is this resolution that you have adopted. The policy is going to put the principles of the resolution into place. When somebody applies to participate in a town-sponsored event, they will be required to provide certain information, identifying who they are, identifying what their organization's about, listing websites that the organization has, social media platforms that the organization may utilize, whether they have any symbols that they are planning on using in their participation in the event, email addresses for the applicant, things like that. Then we talk about that participants are going to be advised that there are types of symbols and messages that do not comply with the policy, and that would include speech that is historically associated with discrimination and oppression, and speech or symbols that may lead to the threat of public safety at these events. So the application process is that the applicant would submit the material required, that the applicant would be notified at least 14 days prior to the event whether the application has been accepted or denied. That if it's denied, the applicant would be entitled to file an appeal within 3 business days of receiving notice of the denial of the application. That there would be a 3-person appeals board. 2 of the representatives would be employees of the town and at least 1 citizen of the town, and that the appeals board would be appointed by the town manager or the town manager's designee. There would be a hearing of the appeal. The appellant would be given notice of the date, time, and place of the hearing, and that the appeal board would then render a decision within 3 business days after the hearing. So that is what you've looked at before. Really, the wording of the resolution has not changed at all. The policy is fairly straightforward. We tried to incorporate a couple of questions and issues that came up at our last time together in November. But through the help of Ms. Jones, Mr. Roy Lance, and Brittany Washington, I think we've been able to put in place a policy that would effectively carry out, again, the principles and really the theme of the resolution that's being presented to you right now. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Again, I know there has been a right good amount of dialogue about this in the past. Things have happened since we last met. Again, I think what has happened since we last met, at least in my view, is further basis for considering what you're doing. I think you're trying to stay ahead of the curve, so to speak, and that's certainly to be applauded on your part. But that's what we've got. We think we've got a product that accomplishes what you have at least expressed an interest in having, and we've got that before you now for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ellis, and I'm going to have council members weigh in or ask questions. I would just observe up front, well, number one, I appreciate the amount of legal research you put into this and preparing this this document for us that leads into a policy. And I do think you may have noted this, but I think while our interaction with you and request for your assistance probably was precipitated mainly by one town event, what is coming out of this is something that will guide the town through any town-sponsored events, and there are numerous ones, and so not just the one that precipitated this. So this should help and guide the town, I think, going forward for any town-sponsored events, which is a very positive thing. So with that, I will see if council has specific questions they want to raise at this time, and I'll start with Ms. Behringer.
I don't. I think you've done a great job, Nick. I really appreciate all that you've included in it, the time and energy you've put into it to get it right, so that it meets what our expectations are. So thank you.
Good, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Singleton.
No, sir. I want to thank Mr. Ellis. I know he's been working on this with us for the best part of the past year. I know that I believe Mr. Mayor, you and maybe Ms. Behringer, when we're looking for attorneys specifically to address this issue, Mr. Ellis's name came up, and I appreciate the information that you put down. I think you've tried to address all the issues that we raised in our several conversations with you. So thank you for what you have presented to us.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Vance.
I have no questions, but Mr. Ellis, I will say it what everyone else has said, that thank you for the deep research on this very pertinent concern that the town has, and appreciate all the hard work. Thank you very much.
Okay, and Mr. Matthews. Phil, you need to unmute. We can't hear you.
Got Kathy's thing again. I'm sorry. Here we go. All right.
You guys are going to catch it. Let me tell you.
Thank you again for all your hard work and efforts and on this. And it's been kind of tough trying to find things out, but I always got a motto. I mean, my counterparts get tired of hearing the staff like sometimes, let's get it right the first time, and that we don't have to keep revisiting things. And I don't know there's going to be a policy that's going to make the whole world happy, but I think you've come up with a very workable plan that'll work in all the applications. That was one of my concerns, just not specific to one thing, but to anything the town does, that it'll be fair and equitable to all in a review process. And I think you've come up with it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Dellinger.
Just thank you, Mr. Ellis, for your hard work. And thanks to staff for all the hard work they put in over the past year or more. And thanks to council as well. This process has really been sort of an opportunity for self-reflection to our values as a town. And I think what we've ultimately manifest is a reflection of that. So I just want to, it's been a pleasure working on this for so long with everyone. So thank you all.
Okay, and thank you, Council. Just before I ask for a motion, for some reason, Mr. Ellis, the name of Mr. Fred Baggett comes to my mind, who was with us during this initial process and was involved initially, and certainly your name was mentioned, I think, by him and some others, and of course, Ms. Jones remembers him well too. This may remind me to give him a call. I haven't talked to him in some time, but anyway, I appreciated the work that he did initially, and you took over from there and got us to where we are now. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, Mr. Mayor, and the buzzword these days seems to be collaboration. That is definitely applicable to this case here, because there was a lot of participation, collaboration, input from a lot of different sources, and I think that helped us get to the quality of product that I think we got before you tonight.
Sure, thank you. And certainly Ms. Jones is part of that. She's come right in and obviously joined in with the effort here. So thank you very much. I believe, Council, a motion is in order. So what the official wording would be that we adopt. Trying to find my note here. Yes.
I think we need a resolution to approve, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion that we consider approval of the resolution 2021-5018 and the policy that goes along with that resolution.
Okay. Yeah.
Second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded, properly so. Any other question, Council, do you have before we call the vote? Okay, hearing none, I will ask the clerk to call the council roll, and if you favor the motion, please vote aye. If you do not, vote no.
Mayor Pro Tem Behringer.
Aye.
Councilmember Dellinger.
Aye.
Councilmember Matthews.
Aye.
Councilmember Singleton,
Aye.
and Councilmember Vance.
Aye.
Okay, I declare that the motion passed unanimously, and I want to thank the council for considering this matter, and I want to thank again Mr. Ellis for his leadership on this thing and for his recommendation. I believe we've done a good day's work that'll help guide our town for some time on issues of this type. So I commend all of you. Thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Mayor, it's a real honor. Enjoyed working with everybody.
Okay, all right, thank you. If you see Mr. Baggett, tell him howdy for me.
I will do that. Everybody have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, council, I'm supposing that you would not be opposed to me declaring about a 10-minute recess, and before we get to the rest of our agenda, that I think we can finish fairly expeditiously. So why don't we take a break? I've got 10 after 9, so if you could be ready to go by no later than 20 after 9, we will plan to resume at that time.
Can you put your timer on?
Yes. Well, I can't set it on the screen like the facilitator did the other day. I wish I could do that. But thank you all. So if you want to kind of mute yourself and turn off your video, that's fine. But 10 minutes and we'll see you. Declare we in adjournment right now. Okay, thank you, Council, for coming back on time, and we will pick up with our meeting now. We're still, I believe we're on item number 3, and Mr. Beck, our Finance Director, has an item for us, audit agreement extension. I won't try to read all the introductory stuff, but in essence, it has to do with probably entering into an agreement with the same firm that we worked with before. So, Mr. Beck, if you're ready, I will recognize you at this time, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to you and members of council as well. You did kind of summarize this item. We had an original 3-year agreement with Malden and Jenkins to perform our annual audits. FY20 was the last of that original 3-year agreement. I've consulted with Mr. Dickerson, and we've both been pleased with the quality of work from Malden and Jenkins, and would like to extend the current arrangement with them. Ask them to provide proposals for that extension, and they proposed 2 options. One was sort of the standard 3-year agreement, which you typically see with audits. And then they also proposed a 5-year agreement. The 5-year agreement does have some cost savings over those first 3 years compared to entering into a 3-year agreement. We would potentially save $13,500 by entering into the 5-year agreement with the audit firm. Mr. Dickerson and myself also discussed the 2 options and felt we would like to recommend the 5-year option since we do realize some cost savings. One important thing to note with these audit agreements is that each year is an individual contract. So even though we say we're going to use Malden and Jenkins for the next 5 years, if for some reason you are not satisfied with the quality of their work, we could engage a different audit firm after any of those given years. That's why we feel comfortable saying that we would go with the 5-year option and realize those cost savings and know that we still have that flexibility. So what I'm bringing to you tonight is just the proposal, and we just want to get buy-in to move forward with Malden and Jenkins as the audit firm going forward. And then we would bring back the formal audit contract for FY21 at a later date, and that would need to be approved by council at that time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Beck. Seems like a reasonable proposal to me, but I'll let council weigh in or ask any questions they may have about this particular firm and your interaction with them. So, Ms. Baring, do you have any questions for Mr. Beck?
I do not. Very good explanation. David.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Vance, anything?
No, I have no questions.
Okay, Mr. Singleton.
No, sir.
Okay, Mr. Matthews.
No question, sir.
Okay, Mr. Dellinger.
No questions.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion. I believe the motion that they're asking for is basically to authorize staff to move forward with Malden and Jenkins for the FY 2021 audit, but with the understanding it'll be a 5-year agreement, and there is cost savings associated with that. Is that right, Mr. Beck?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. All right. Council, somebody give me a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and properly seconded. Everybody understands what the motion is, so I'll ask the town clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Dellinger,
Aye.
Councilmember Matthews,
Aye.
Councilmember Singleton,
Aye.
Councilmember Vance,
Aye.
and Mayor Pro Tem Behringer.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, council. The motion passes unanimously, and it is so ordered. I appreciate your time on that. We'll move right on to the next item, and I'll recognize our town engineer, Mr. Johnson. This has to do with a contract amendment involving Ramey Kemp. So, Mr. Johnson, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay.
No.
Yes, this item is for the Van Dora Springs Road Sidewalk Project to go over contract amendment number 7 with Ramey Kemp and Associates. Just very quick overview. We'll talk about the project and then the work that we've completed to date, and quickly talk about the contract amendment and staff recommendation and next steps to completion of the project. So as you remember, this project is along Van Dora Springs Road, just south of Timber Drive, down to Miriam Avenue and Tiffany Circle. The project will include adding curb and gutter along each side of Van Dora Springs Road, as well as overlaying the new road once everything's complete, and then adding a new sidewalk that runs along the south side of Timber Drive, connecting between the Tiffany Woods neighborhood and Timber Drive sidewalk at the fire station. So the work completed to date, we've got this contract started back in 2016. It's one of our final bond projects from that era. We've got project went through 25 preliminary plans, 25% and 65% design phases back in 17 and 18. And in spring of last year, or spring of 2019, we conducted some SUE to evaluate the water line as requested by the city of Raleigh. As you may remember, in about a year ago, we, after looking and finding out that there was asbestos cement materials inside the existing water line, they determined they wanted to upgrade that line with ductile iron pipes. So we went through a interlocal agreement with Raleigh Water, and they went to producing and incorporating a new water line design into the plans. So we brought the plans to 75% completion last fall and began the land acquisition phase in September. And we're attorney's office is currently working through and meeting with owners right now. And so we are gearing up towards finishing the land acquisition and setting the stage for final design and permitting the project and moving into construction. So that's what brings us to our meeting today, to talk about some additional services that will be needed that were not included in the original scope with Ramey Kemp, but will be needed to take the projects through construction. So a very brief overview. We've got three basic tasks that we're adding into this contract amendment. The first is related to some subsurface utility engineering. We've had some previous coordination in trying to work with 811 locates to get markings for all the different utilities along the corridor. We've had some luck with certain utility owners and not with some others. And we're still continuing to work on that to see if we can get them to locate the lines and mark them. But due to the time where we're at, and so as to not delay the project, we want to also put in a amendment to add some subsurface utility engineering so that our design consultant can go out there and designate those underground lines and make sure that we are confident there are no other outstanding conflicts with some of the underground, especially telecommunication lines, and some of them that may have even been installed over the last couple of years since the original survey was done. And then the last two are related to taking the project into the bidding phase and to oversee construction. So the bid phase services would include providing a set of contract documents, going through the bid advertisement and bid opening, addressing any questions that arise through the bid process. And then construction and administration would be assisting the town with overseeing shop drawing submittals, addressing more RFIs during construction or any kind of conflicts that may arise, and helping the town with the monthly progress meeting, reviewing pay apps, and certainly coordinating with the utility owners that need to do any relocations throughout the project. This is a summary of our amendment, the SUE, and there's also a few easement platting exhibits that we're putting in there to assist the town attorney with closing on a few of the parcels that may require some additional easement exhibits, and then the bidding, construction administration, and utilities coordination from Ray B. Kemp, and then is also to provide materials testing for your concrete, aggregates, and asphalt. It's our third-party materials testing that would be done by Stewart, one of their sub-consultants. So the total of that amendment is $67,837. So the staff's recommendation is to approve contract amendment number 7, authorize the town manager to execute that amendment with Ramey Kemp and Associates for $67,837. And then next steps would be for us to continue wrapping up the land acquisition phase and moving towards final plans completion, hoping to bid the project in the April to May timeframe of this year, and to put out a notice to proceed in the summer. Right now we're looking at about 6 to 7 months for project completion, which will put us very close to the end of the year, depending on weather and final paving operations. It could bleed into 2022, but that is where we're pushing as hard as we can to finish the project as directed by council. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Well done. Seems pretty straightforward to me. Council, questions for Mr. Johnson, Mr. Dellinger?
No questions at this time.
Okay, Mr. Matthews?
No questions this time, sir.
Okay, Mr. Vance?
No questions.
Mr. Singleton?
Chris, thank you for showing us the schedule and trying to adhere to that, get that project completed, if possible, this calendar year. If not, at least get it started and moving forward. I know that this has been discussed for some time, before 2013 when it was in that bond referendum, for 10 years or more now. So I appreciate your diligence in moving this project forward.
Okay, thanks, sir. And Mr. Behringer?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, are you ready to vote, council, on the motion that we authorize, approve the amendment number 7 and authorize the manager to execute the amendment in the amount of $67,837?
So moved.
Second.
Moved, properly seconded by Ms. Behringer and or Mr. Matthews. Okay, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll for the vote.
Councilmember Dellinger?
Aye.
Councilmember Matthews?
Aye.
Councilmember Singleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Vance?
Aye.
And Mayor Pro Tem Behringer?
Aye.
Okay, thank you all. Motion passed unanimously again. Thank you, Chris. And you have another item for us, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, sir. This next item is for the 2021 annual resurfacing contract. Can you see the screen again?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So quick agenda. We'll talk about just the recap on the annual resurfacing budget, and then talk about the bid opening results, and show again our upcoming resurfacing street list, and then talk about the construction schedule and final recommendations.
Okay, sure.
So the annual resurfacing budget again is a split up. We've got about, this year we had about $1.22 million in the pavement management budget. We're right now putting approximately 60% into the resurfacing budget and 40% into the public works contract that they put out for pavement preservation later in the year. So we had about $747,000 for this year. For the bid opening, we opened bids on February 4th. We had a total of 4 bids submitted. The engineer's estimate was just short of our original budget of $746,377. The lowest responsive bidder was Daniels Incorporated of Garner. They submitted a bid of $568,947, which was approximately 24% below the engineer's estimate. So we had some very competitive bids. They had an MWBE participation of 0%, but that is because they are self-performing all the work under this contract. Again, I showed you this list a few months ago, but right now we've got about approximately 24 streets in the contract, with a couple of those latter shown in purple being some partial heavy cracking that we're going to do some patching, but approximately 3 miles, just over 3 miles of local streets under this contract. Project schedule, starting with tonight, would be to award the bid to Daniels Incorporated of Garner, and then we'll move to get the town manager and Daniels Incorporated to execute the contracts later this month, be ready to issue a notice to proceed in March, and I believe we've got a 6-month construction schedule, so we would be wrapping up late summer, early fall. The recommendation is to award the contract to Daniels Incorporated of Garner, authorize the town manager to execute the contract in an amount of $568,947, and also to authorize staff, due to we have about $178,000 in additional monies left over due to the competitive bids. So just wanted to get a thumbs up from council if you're ready for us to take a look at more streets on the prioritization list and bring back a future change order to council for approval that would utilize those remaining funds.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. We need a motion on this, but before we go to that, I don't think I'll call the roll, but if a council member has a question, just signify that at this time, and we'll let you go ahead and just ask at random. Anybody? Okay, hearing none, a motion will be in order consistent with the recommendation from our town engineer.
Mr. Mayor, I move we authorize the manager to execute the contract with Daniels Inc. in the amount of $568,947,000, and also authorize staff to select additional streets on the prioritization list and bring back a future change order.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Singleton, and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Behringer. Okay. Any questions before we vote? Hearing none. Ms. Clerk, if you will call the roll at this time.
Councilmember Matthews.
Aye.
Councilmember Singleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Vance.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Behringer.
Aye.
And Councilmember Dellinger.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, council. Motion passes unanimously, and it is so ordered. So, Mr. Johnson, you have your approval from council to move ahead, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Moving on now to item number 6, I'll recognize Mr. Hodges, our assistant town manager, in regards to this matter, recommendation of decision of water sewer capacity policy.
Mr. Mayor and council members, good evening. In November of 2018, the Public Works Committee recommended suspension of a town policy for water sewer allocation that had been used for a number of years to protect water capacity and encourage development of desired housing types. The council accepted this recommendation and formally suspended the policy in December of 2018. That suspension was for a 2-year period that would end March 1st, 2021. Since that time, recently, developers projects that have been approved by council have asked staff for assurances that the limitations of the policy would not impact their projects after March 1st. A part of this policy was to dole out water capacity to certain housing types, but it also put limitations on the number of houses that can be built each year, depending on the type. So staff observed that the policy was no longer needed to protect water sewer capacity, and some of the elements of the policy did not meet legislative changes regarding development control. The town attorney reviewed this and recommended rescission of rescinding the policy. The Public Works Committee has reviewed this and also has recommended that this policy be rescinded. As a part of background for your consideration, though, we wanted to also follow up with you that the original reason for doing this was to ensure that we had sufficient water sewer capacity for a growing town. And I think that the Public Works Committee is comfortable that we are reporting back to them on an annual basis. You heard this a little bit from the utilities director that was here in the fall of last year. But we did also include in your packet the FY 21 report from Raleigh Water, which goes through June 20th, June of 20. And currently, right now, Garner is using the number of gallons per day being used is about 2.3 million out of a capacity of 7.2 million, or 32%. So in other words, we still have 68% of our capacity to support growth and development. And this is due largely due to the fact that council made some very strategic purchases of additional capacity over the years since the merger with the city of Raleigh. So we want to make sure that you had that good news there to have as background for any decision about rescinding the allocation policy. But we are bringing this to you tonight with the recommendation for rescinding the policy. Now I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges. I appreciate that. And of course, I don't know if Elmo or Mr. Singleton want to weigh in on that. They comprise the Public Works Committee, I believe. But council members, questions in regards to Mr. Hodges' presentation? Anybody? Okay, hearing none. A motion would be in order requesting that we rescind the water sewer capacity policy as alluded to by Mr. Hodges.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and properly seconded. Any other question, comment? Hearing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Singleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Vance.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Behringer.
Aye.
Councilmember Dellinger.
Aye.
And Councilmember Matthews.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously, and it is so ordered. Thank you very much, John, for your presentation on that, and to the Public Works Committee for your efforts there as well. Ready to move to the next item, which is committee reports, item J on the agenda. I'm not aware of any, but are there any? Okay, Mr. Manager, you're not aware of any, right? So we'll move to the next item, and that would be to manager's report, sir. I recognize Mr. Dickerson.
All right. Mr. Mayor and Council, your manager reports in your agenda, the Garner info, and then also a building and permit report. And in addition to that, Mr. Hodges sent the email out talking about a couple of meetings that are coming up. One's TCC, the Triangle Community Coalition, and they typically come out to visit us in what they call a coffee chat, and basically talk about development and any updates the town wants to give about any policies and development plans we have, or regulations concerning development, and just kind of a really good exchange with the development community. And so the date for that we threw out was March 25th, starting at 8:30. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at those on your calendar. You don't have to reply now, but we can get that from you in the morning or sometime tomorrow. Just let us know whether that's okay, or respond to the email. And then the other one is a bond session that we told you about at the retreat, and that's right now scheduled for March the 11th. Excuse me. Our financial advisors, Davenport, would join us that morning, and that would be 8:30 to 12:30, and we would talk about the bond and debt, and how to sequence the bond and the amount also. So two things there. So
Roger,
yes.
that is the last day of the North Carolina Main Street Conference. It will still be going on that morning, and I had planned to be there at that conference.
Okay, we can look at other alternatives.
Okay, thank you.
All right, instead of that Thursday. Okay, we'll look at some other dates and see if that works with them. All right. The other thing that I just wanted to mention was Wake County is working with Aversboro Road Baptist Church to have COVID testing. Did someone say something? Thursday through Saturday, and I don't have the information on that. It should be, I think we have it posted on our website, but I don't have the times on that. But that will be happening for a few days in Garner. And then the other event is electronic recycling that will be held at Public Works Saturday 8 to 1. And that's 610 Rand Mill Road. And we'll be taking electronics like TVs and computers and those type of things that are not really good for the waste stream. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager. And by the way, I've seen the email or whatever, the announcement about the testing at Aversboro. The town's gotten the word out on that very well, I think. Anybody have a question for the manager in regards to his report? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Jones, our attorney, do you have any information or report you need to share with us at this time?
No, I don't have any report tonight.
Okay. We'll give you another chance at the next meeting. Thank you. Okay, council reports. Why don't I start with Mr. Dellinger this time?
Nothing other than appreciative of the quick response by DOT staff and then DOT for Garner Road across from the cement building over there. That got cleared up very quickly. So thanks everyone for their quick action on that. And that's all I have.
Okay, wow. All right. Mr. Matthews, any report?
Nothing this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Vance.
I would just like to say that it was very pleasant to see the plan for downtown come together. I remember being a part of the GRA, which is now the Downtown Association, seeing all that come together over time and the difficulties we had initially. We were getting things started, and now it's beginning to blossom and bloom. It's really a great event to be alive to witness. I know it started with Councilwoman Behringer and her efforts with the downtown and beautifying downtown, and then it just blossomed into what it is now. So it's really good to see it.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's been a long time in the works. I'm excited about it too. Which brings us to Ms. Behringer.
Just one thing, I want to reiterate some things I said during our planning retreat about beautification and paying attention to improving the appearance of our town. I just don't want us to forget that. I know we have a lot of other ways to expend our energy, but seeing is believing, and I just want to be sure that we don't let that drop along the wayside and lose the focus on it. So, like that to be put in the minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. Singleton, anything to report?
Yes, I just was to report on behalf of the Garner Civitan Club and Garner Methodist Church. They will be holding a blood drive on March the 19th, and just want to report that. There'll be, of course, certain procedures. They're asking people if you can to schedule your appointment online. You can do that through the bloodconnection.org, which is through Red Cross. But I will mention that also at our next couple of meetings in case there's anyone out there listening who would consider donating blood. March 19th.
Thank you, Mr. Singleton. And from the mayor, I would let council and others know that I've worked on the sort of the annual state of the town messaging, and I've worked with Mr. Mercer and Adam. They're doing a good job of putting together a sort of a video montage. I believe that's going to be available on the website probably by tomorrow. So if you have interest in viewing that, it probably takes about 10 or 12 minutes, I believe. I'm pleased to work with those guys. My first effort in doing this, and we have some good things to kind of review that's happened the past year and moving forward. So commend that to you. People don't get a chance to watch it. I may bring it to the work session, but at any rate, it'll be available there. I pride myself on sort of keeping up with things in various parts of town, but so maybe I shouldn't ask this, but do I notice some new trash receptacles? Have they been there for a while? Are those that are attached to poles and signposts and down on Main Street? I mean, East Garner Road. I'm looking at Miss Behringer.
They've been there. They've been there a while.
You need to come over here more often.
I do that, and you know, I knew obviously we'd had Tim, what's his name, who you know has been interested in trying to help us clean up our roads and picking up trash and those kinds of things. So
they've been here for quite a long time. They actually were installed when Paul Cox was still Public Works Director. But our biggest issue on this part of town, I imagine it is elsewhere, is people throwing things out the window or falling off the back of their cars or whatever. I saw just a big trash bag that was laying on the side of the road and open today as I was out and about. It's like just absolutely no regard. Just, you know, if it falls out, oh well, too bad. Yeah. And so I'm afraid not a lot of people use those trash receptacles. I'm glad they're there, and when I'm walking, we do use them, but they're rarely full.
Okay. Well, I was thinking they're certainly convenient to use, but by their placing there in strategic places, it appears sure enough.
Mr. Mayor, I'll report out of the Parks and Rec Committee meeting this week that the Parks and Rec Department is in the process of adopting a highway, and I believe, if my notes are correct, they were going to adopt Garner Road and down through Jones Sausage Road, and I think a little bit further down. I could be saying to be corrected, but I believe they were actually going to do the formal adoption of the highway for litter pickup.
That would be wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger, for that information. At this time, I believe we've completed all the regular open meeting items on the agenda. We do have one closed session. Is there anything else council has before we entertain a motion to go into closed session?
Mr. Mayor, if you get on Garner Road on the sidewalk and get close to those trash receptacles, Miss Behringer has signed every one of them, so I just wanted to let you know that. Her signature's on all of them.
All right.
It's not a bad idea, Gray. Not a bad idea.
I may walk it just to see if I can find that. Sure enough. Thank you very much. I was by there actually 2 days ago. Yeah. So, all right. You see the site here in your agenda. So can I have a motion that we go into closed session?
So moved.
Okay. Probably made and seconded. I guess, Mr. Attorney, I need to give the site General Statutes 143 318.111A5 to discuss possible real estate acquisition. So motion's been properly made and seconded. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll to confirm our closed session?
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem Behringer?
Aye.
Councilmember Dellinger?
Aye.
Councilmember Matthews?
Aye.
Councilmember Singleton?
Aye.
And Councilmember Vance?
Aye.
Okay, the motion is approved, and I will declare that the council is now going into a closed session. And so, council, if you will stand by. Okay, the council went into to closed session to talk with staff in regards to property acquisition. We had a good discussion and gave staff some direction and took no formal action at this time. So we'll come back to this issue at a future date, I'm sure. With that, council, I don't believe there's anything else on our agenda we need to tend to, so I will entertain a motion that we adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Okay, moved and properly seconded. I believe on this vote, again, we can do this by voting online. Please say aye if you favor the motion.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, if there's any nays, and there are none. So thank you, council, for your good work tonight. I appreciate your time, and I declare that our meeting is fully adjourned. See you next time.
Bye, Kathy.
Bye.